It's time to talk about one of the best adventure animes I've ever seen. The series Hunter x Hunter, created by the author Togashi, is a series that a lot of people would say is the best anime ever. And whether you believe that is true or not, you have to admit that Hunter x Hunter has one of the best adventures you'll ever see. A series that has completed a total of 148 episodes and really didn't even finish the whole story. I mean, for the most part, we as an audience don't know if we're going to get more anime content, however, it's been done for quite some time. But to create 150 some episodes is no slouch, especially after the creator made another banger in Yu Yu Hakusho. It is very rare to have two big series made by the same author, and whether you like Yu Yu Hakusho or Hunter x Hunter, I think both of them are in a top 10 discussion. But in this video, we're specifically going to go over Hunter x Hunter. We're going to talk about some of the most important arcs of the series, the deeper meaning within certain characters within Hunter x Hunter, and even other smaller things you probably don't care about, such as the power system within Hunter x Hunter, which is also one of the best power systems I've ever seen. And even though we shouldn't have to say this, I'm going to hit you with a spoiler warning. I suggest you watch Hunter x Hunter because we're going to talk about it from beginning to end. Now then, without further ado, let's talk about the characters. When it comes to Hunter x Hunter, this is one of those rare series where you can have multiple characters that all seem equal. It's also interesting that each one of these characters does not have to agree and have the same goal. The character of this group that stands out the most is easily Leoriel. Now, I won't be stumbling over this name multiple times, so Mr. L is a character within the series that also wants to be a hunter. A hunter being a prestigious class at which you can really do whatever you want. So when it comes to Mr. L, even though he may not be the strongest or the fastest, he really just wants to be a hunter for the money. If he gets the money, he can become a doctor and therefore he can help out the poor, or do whatever else he really wants to do. Mr. L has one of the most realistic goals when it comes to the rest of the cast. To say that you want money or even have a good job is something that an audience such as us could understand. But when this differs is a character such as Kurapika. Kurapika is a character that wants to get revenge for what happened to his clan. It is true, just like a lot of other anime, you may feel as if this is a Sasuke story ripoff. However, as another member of the group, Kurapika stands out a lot more. It's not like he's a ruthless killer compared to getting back what he deserves. Now, if you have finished Hunter x Hunter, it was pretty obvious that at some point he was gonna have his own arc. However, the series in the later point really flipped it around to make him the main character of the series. But that's for another time. The other two main characters of the group, Gon and Killua, act as if they're 1A and, well, 1A. It's true, as a viewer, we watch Gon seeing what he wants to achieve, which is finding his father. And Gon believes if he was able to become a hunter just like his dad, it would be easier to track down his own father. But on the other hand, Killua's job is just to make friends and have fun. There isn't really a big purpose for Killua. Matter of fact, he only went and took the hunter exam so he could meet people. But compared to Gon, I would argue that Killua had the most character development of anyone in the group. Now listen, I could argue that both of these characters are considered the main character. If we just so happened to follow Killua's story instead, which we did have a small little arc, I think we would have had the same story with just more sentimental value. But all four of these characters are almost equal in my eyes. Each one of them has a lot of time devoted to their own growth, and they don't do anything that takes away from another character. Again, I say that this is rare to have four characters that are all equal value. Now when it comes to the antagonists, some characters come and go. Realistically, the only character that stays around for their own personal reasons is Hisoka. But I mean, we'll probably talk about him in a later arc, so stay tuned for that one. Now let's start off with looking at these arcs, and the first one you're going to get is the Hunter Exam arc. The Hunter Exam arc, at which we'll see from the beginning of the series, you'll either love it or you'll probably hate it. The purpose of this arc is to show the audience, as well as the characters, what it is to be a hunter. Throughout most of this time, you'll think it's very vague, doing tasks that don't seem to be very challenging. I'm not saying us as an audience can jump off a cliff and live, because clearly these guys couldn't do it either. However, sometimes the challenges during the Hunter Exam don't seem to be that challenging as they probably should be. This arc overall probably should have been longer, however, since they had such a large cast, they had to kill him off at some point. And also, the authors wanted to convey that this is a world in which you can die. We see it several times throughout this arc that many people go to the exam to get their license but risk their life trying. It's also an easy way for us to tell who are the select few that could be a hunter. Besides our main cast that are obviously going to pass, there are a few others that are able to pass the exam with almost ease. The easiest character I can think of is Hanzo. I mean, this dude almost had no reason to even come to the exam. But the most criminal act of this is the fact that we don't see some of these characters again. I mean, there are some characters such as Pink Arrow here that will show up in a later arc, but some characters that had a pretty big part within the first arc fall into the shadows. I'm looking specifically at Hanzo because you rarely see him again within the story. But look guys, that's not here nor there. The point is to show that our main 4 characters are strong enough to even get their license, however, they're not strong enough to compete with the top tier. As an introduction arc, I think the exam overall did its job. And realistically, this arc is coupled up with another, the following arc is Heaven's Arena. Now Heaven's Arena is technically still a part of the Hunter exam. We see Gon and Killua travel to Heaven's Arena to get stronger as well as to get some extra cash. And again, I could say that a lot of this arc is almost suppressed. I mean, there are a lot of different floors within Heaven's Arena and we see Gon and Killua skip a lot of it. Matter of fact, they don't even get to the level of being a floor master, which I mean, I would love to see even if it was a part 2 of Heaven's Arena. But the main purpose of this arc was to show that the characters need to learn Nin. It just so happens an instructor that's dilly-dallying around wants to teach Gon and Killua how to use Nin. And while we do have multiple fights, especially the big one with Gon versus Hisoka, the main thing that you want to see from our characters here is that they will learn Nin. Now it's interesting as a viewer because you may wonder, was Nin always a part of the series even during the first part of the Hunter's exam? I mean, it's obvious that some characters such as Hisoka know how to use Nin, but how much of Nin was he actually using during the said exam? I could say that some characters such as Illumi, who was in exam, probably used it as well, but since it wasn't really a thing as an audience member, we can't be for certain. Anyway, Gon and Killua are tasked to learn the basics of Nin. Now when it comes to Nin, this is overall the series' power system. This hexagon here shows the ability that anyone can be born with. Your Nin, or I guess another word you can use as aura, will fall in one of these categories. Plus, if you fall in a specific category, anything that's adjacent you can still learn. For example, a character such as Gon, who we find out is an enhancer, can still use the 2 types next to the enhancer slot. However, the probability of it drops because it's not what he was born with, and also usually anything on the opposite side is almost a 0% chance to learn. This really keeps it even amongst a lot of characters because you can't learn every single ability there is. Now there are characters that are specialists that have a unique ability that's specific to themselves, or characters such as Kurapika at which you're just him. But again, Heaven's Arena's arc was specifically made to show off their power system. I'd say overall, joining these 2 arcs together, I think they're okay. Now for an anime only viewer, this introduction goes on for about 30 plus episodes. It's not terrible, I'll be completely honest, but it's for sure not the peak of the series. So for an introduction, it's good. However, going back to a smaller part of the story is going to be hard to watch. Not for everyone, just for some people. Now the next arc is where I believe Hunter x Hunter's story really begins. The York New City arc, you get it, New York City, I know right, terrible. This arc finally shows a large amount of villains within the cast. Here we see the introduction of the spiders. Now we were teased about the spiders several times throughout the series, such as during the Hisoka Tubby time, but finally we're seeing every single one of the group members as well as their leader. Now you also want to watch the beginning of the Hunter exam to understand why this group is important. For the most part, the spiders are a group of villains that collect money for the Shiggles. However, this is also where Kurapika's story falls in line. Since the spiders are responsible for the extermination of his clan, he has to get his get back. And this is finally the time you get to see Kurapika become the main character of the series. While we do still have Gon and Killua running around, they're not in much danger because they're still kids. However, Kurapika put a limitation on his ability to specifically kill spiders. And also, we get a good fight between Kurapika as well as Uvogin. Now the question you may have is, how strong are the spiders compared to our main cast? Even though majority of the time we see that the spiders are stronger than anyone we've ever seen in the story, Kurapika kind of breaks that rule because of his Nin ability. But you can look at a character such as Crollo, who was able to fight 2 different Zodic members at the same time. So for the most part, I would say this group is a lot stronger than we realize, and if you exclude Kurapika and his crazy Nin ability, they actually might be stronger than you think. Overall, this arc ends by Kurapika at least getting a portion of his revenge. Now we won't see Kurapika show up again for a long time within the series, but at least he did have his own portion. And when it comes to the twin boys, they get the spotlight back by going to the Greed Island arc. Overall, the Spider/Phantom Troop arc is one of the best within Hunter x Hunter. I'll be honest, after this arc, they didn't do enough with this group. We saw that 2 of the members were killed because of Kurapika, but when it comes to comparing them amongst the other characters within the series, this was top notch. notch. Maybe it would be better to have another York New City arc where they can benefit from having these spiders again. However, at the same time, they should not be beating a dead horse. There's many other villains that show up within Hunter x Hunter, and the Phantom Troop only act as if they're a third party. So again, it's not too bad to water the seeds, however, don't overwater the grass. But next we enter another arc that feels as if it's very watered down. The Greed Island arc is up next, as well as one of the largest portions of the series. Greed Island introduces a new character named Biscuit. Once our characters are put into this new realm, Biscuit's main job is to show them how to use their Nin ability. While we know what type both Gon and Killua are, it doesn't mean that they know how to use their Nin ability. So, to spoil you now, as if you don't know, Killua's ability is to summon electricity. It's pretty simple, but his Nin ability becomes an electrical essence. On the other hand, Gon's able to enhance his strength by using Jaja-Ken. Throughout the series, he'll learn how to use other forms of it, such as rock, paper, and scissors. But if you think Killua's ability is simple, I mean, this right here is different. But when it comes to Greed Island as a whole, I would say this is a fun arc, to say the least. Overall, Gon still is trying to reach his dad, and he believes by clearing this game, he'll be one step closer. But when it comes to Greed Island, you want to be able to collect different types of cards. Of course, these cards have different abilities, and you'll have to fight off other people to get what you want. But Gon and Killua are willing to do so not only to get closer to Ging, but as well as strengthen their own abilities. There's also multiple times that we see our Phantom Troop members, as well as Hisoka. Now before, I said that the Phantom Troop acts as a third party, and that is true, but if there's anyone within the series as a third party, it is Hisoka. I mean, throughout this arc, he was even willing to help out our main characters through a tough opponent. And I also want to mention that Hisoka could really get his own video. I mean, this character is very different for the most part. Most people would believe that Hisoka's main goal is to fight other strong opponents, but I'd argue that there's a lot more to his desire. I believe Hisoka takes great joy in seeing characters that have a large potential, and he wants to fight those said people at their max potential. After the Heaven's Arena arc, you won't be scared of Hisoka anymore. Matter of fact, our main characters aren't even scared of him. Well, at least by his fearful fighting prowess. But overall, Hisoka's character feels like he's just here for the fans. And when it comes to the character Bisky, I do like her because she's just a teacher. Unfortunately, once the Greed Island arc is over, she doesn't really have much importance to the series. But I do believe she was a valuable character to take up the third spot in the main group once Leorio and Kurapika were gone. To wrap up the story of the Greed Island arc, Genthru, also known as the Bomber, is one of the worst villains I've ever seen. It's not necessarily that Genthru's a bad character compared to he's just bad by proxy. I mean, we just got off of an arc in which the spiders were a main villain. I mean, they're literally still walking around within this arc. So why should I assume that Genthru should be the main villain when I see others that are still clearly stronger? On top of that, Genthru is a villain within the game. Yes, he was killing people in real life because he was trying to steal their cards, however, it didn't feel as impactful. You have to realize that he wasn't like the spiders in York New City just killing people outright in the streets. So was Genthru fine because this is a training arc? Yeah, sure he was. But I don't think he deserves any more mention besides that. And finally from here we get to transfer over to one of the biggest arcs of Hunter x Hunter, which is the Chimera Ant Arc. The Chimera Ant Arc to me is the best arc of Hunter x Hunter. Not only they show us villains that can rival other characters we've seen, they make this a global issue when the ants are born. One fateful day, an ant that was presumably from the Dark Continent is born, and well, that specific ant starts to grow its own species. Now these different ants work in their own hierarchy, and because many of them have their own human DNA within them, that means that they can also think for themselves. Now most of the ants you'll see are going to have their own side story that we could talk about. Some of them are actually real important to the main story and other ones are just here for filler. But I argue that the main ones that really matter are the Royal Guard as well as the King. You see, we still get a training arc with our main characters Gon and Killua once they find Kite. Kite also tells them that this is the world that you live in. Sometimes you're going to have to kill if you want to be able to survive. And while I think characters such as Biscuit or Wing are very good teachers, they're not like Kite. Every other training moment we've had so far is almost for show. But now both of the boys have to fight so they can survive. And also they really hit home when even the teacher was not able to survive. Now before I get ahead of myself, let me also say this. The Chimera Ant Arc also does a very great job highlighting the other ants. You see, we start off looking at the King because he is a ruthless killer. However, in due time, he wants to begin to reason and grow as a society. And while this example is coming from Miriam, who is on top of the hierarchy, there is a slew of different ants that have their own personalities and desires. It's almost as if it's a brand new series at which we're presented with brand new characters that all have their own goals. You may not remember majority of their names, and I really don't blame you, I wouldn't either. But after the Royal Guard is born, you can pretty much tell who is more important within the ants compared to others. Now this first half of the Chimera Ant Arc really cooks, but the second half might cook even harder once they present us with Komigi. At first, the king was taking great joy in killing a lot of people he simply didn't agree with. However, when Komigi shows up, a character that does not have the same standards as other people, I'm talking about she's blind, Miriam's perspective starts to change when he realizes he has a threat that's not just scared of him. Now very quickly, Komigi becomes a character at which Miriam believes he has to protect. For some people, you may think it's because she's blind and gets torn up by a bird, but in actuality, it's more because he is human. We've seen throughout this whole arc that many of the ants continue to evolve. The most obvious example is many of them learn how to use Nin in a very short time frame, but it's also a situation that the king of all of the ants can also grow feelings. So maybe Miriam actually did just care about this girl because not only she wasn't scared of him, but this is also someone that looked forward to playing you in a game every single day. On the contrast, we also have to point this back to Gon freaks. Compared to the other ants that are trying to be more human-like as they continue to evolve, Gon's really going the opposite way. We see Gon enter a new transformation just so he could kill Neferpito. Now I don't really want to explain what this is supposed to be because I really don't understand it myself. But the reason Gon's transformation is important is because he chose to give away his humanity. Throughout this whole Hunter x Hunter series, we do see that Gon really doesn't have a kind heart. I mean, for the most part, if you benefit him, he doesn't mind keeping you around. But there are times where another character can do him dirty and he doesn't mind offing you instantly. I mean, just in this arc alone, he was willing to even betray his best friend. The same friend that has no business to be here except to help him. So comparing these two situations, the ants are trying to evolve and become more human-esque. But Gon starts to become an animal that doesn't really have feelings or care for another being. Now look, maybe he's just a chill guy and I don't get it. But to me, Gon is very intriguing within this arc, and really it's the end of his story as well. Looking at this arc, you can look at the Royal Guard as well as Miriam and realize that they made these characters way too strong. Especially when it comes to Miriam, I wonder if the author actually knew how to kill this character. I mean, the only character that's a protagonist at which we believe could actually beat him would have been Netero. But the problem here is he lost with ease. And real quick, jumping back to Miriam, I would argue that this character did not have enough screen time. Once we find out his Nin ability is to eat anything he wants and then he can gain that said thing's power, I can only imagine how strong this character could have been. But nonetheless, the author took the easy way out by just poisoning the Royal Guard and the king. But the good news is the end of this arc actually shows Miriam getting what he wants. Once we know that the all-pro Gungi player is not going to live, Miriam gets to die beside her. And overall, I would say it's pretty fitting for a character that could have done a lot more damage than he actually did. But look, overall, us as an audience realizes that the ants are from the Dark Continent, which is a whole different world, a part of the series which we haven't even seen. But seeing characters such as the ants and as well as how much damage they have done and could do is a good start. And speaking of the Dark Continent, this leads us to the last arc of Hunter x Hunter. Well, at least the anime for right now. We're looking at one of the more controversial arcs of the series, the 13th Chairman Arc. And I'll just be straightforward with you, this arc sucks. There's three main things to note within this arc, and I'll just order them from best to least. The first part is us seeing another Zodiac member in Aluka. Since Gon basically lost the ability to live after the fight with Neferpito, Killua is still that boy. He decides to go get his brother who can grant any wish you want. Despite all the hardships he had to go through, including avoiding Hisoka trying to take his cheek, Killua is still trying to save Gon the best he can. And he also put his own life in jeopardy. Aluka's ability also comes from the Dark Continent. So this portion here is for us to be able to see what is from the Dark Continent, but also giving the story a close. Since this is the end of the story for Gon and Killua, they want to somehow make it be a positive light at the very end. The next portion of this is Gon gets to see his dad. What was his dad doing this whole time, you may ask? Oh, absolutely nothing. It's pretty obvious, including the audience within this show, that he's just a deadbeat. And I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't have anything else for you. It is pretty clear that we will get more from Jean in the near future. But since we spent 100+ episodes with Gon trying to reach out to his father, and then his father's a bum, I don't know, dude, it's just garbage. But even though Gon's dad sucks, it's not as bad as what's actually happening within the election. Since Netero was killed during the last arc, they have to find a new chairman. And I mean, the options are just terrible, dude. Maybe if we saw these characters actually fight or do anything of importance within a series, we would care. But when most of the characters are nothing more than a look-alike of their zodiac sign, I have no reason to care about any of them. This is really only a topic to bring back Leoriel, and I'm not mad with him being a part of the whole election, including the arc in general. But why introduce characters like this that are clearly not important? Even the ones you think that may have a chance to do something like Pariston are not anything. I really just don't get it. But listen, the arc ends by both Killua and Gon choosing to go their separate ways. I think this first part of Hunter x Hunter was to show the story of Gon and Killua. And if we ever get more content past the manga Succession War arc, it's not going to highlight these two. With the Chairman arc, this closes every important arc we see within the anime for Hunter x Hunter. So now I just want to roll into a general conversation of the Hunter x Hunter anime. This is one of the best adventure shonen animes you'll ever see. I'm not gonna cap. Overall, Hunter x Hunter is a show that had a very long build up, but didn't feel as if there's any unneeded arcs for the story. I'd say that the Great Island arc, even though it wasn't very involved, felt as if it was very important to have the characters grow. The only arc that felt unnecessary was the Chairman arc, but luckily they masked it very well by showing the Alaka focal point. Now as I say that, most people are going to say the anime is at its best when it's at this Chimera Ant Arc. And if you do feel that way, I'll give you a +1 on that. I feel the exact same way. But where Hunter x Hunter does an amazing job is having multiple characters to focus on. You see, having Gon and Killua basically be equals was a great play. And plus, we really see Killua have almost 2 different arcs to himself. Mr. L really had a focal point when he showed back up during the Chairman arc knowing how to use Nin. And of course, Kurapika was doing all that murdering stuff he was doing. But I also want to say this, it's better to stop while you're ahead. I don't think we ever have to see Gon and Killua together again within the story. For all we know, Gon does not have the ability to use Nin anymore. And honestly, I think it's better to not have a butt pull and keep it this way. Maybe you can have Killua show back up to help Kurapika as a side character, but I don't want more than that. I also want to point out that the author's wife is Takeuchi. For those of you who do not know, this is the creator of Sailor Moon. The reason I bring this up is because I don't think we'll ever see an end to this series. Of course, your health conditions are more important than finishing out a manga for us. But if it so happens that things go wrong, I wouldn't be surprised if the other creator picks up their pen and finishes off Hunter x Hunter. I mean, we've already seen it several times at which Hunter x Hunter is referenced inside Sailor Moon as well as vice versa. Now, I don't know when, but it still could happen. But wrapping this up, I'm going to say this is a phenomenal adventure series. If you've not seen Hunter x Hunter, I really think you're missing out. But if you have, I want to know what you guys think of anything about the series in the comments down below. And for now, since you did just watch a 20-minute episode of Hunter x Hunter, I'm sure you want some more, so I have one for you over there. But anyways, this is going to be out for Christmas, so if you are watching then, Merry Christmas to you. I'll see you guys later. Have a great one. Take care. Peace.